Tennessee Voices viewers, this is David Plazas, the Opinion and Engagement Director for the USA Today Network Tennessee and the Tennessean. I'm so thrilled to have as my guest today Lynn Norment, legendary journalist, writer, and editor, famous for Ebony in Chicago, but also now a columnist for the Commercial Appeal in Memphis. She's back in Tennessee, which is her home state, originally from Bolivar, Tennessee. I just learned to pronounce it correctly today. So Lynn, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great under the circumstances, but my spirits have been up, so I'm good.
You have written some inspiring pieces lately, I'm sure motivated by this COVID-19 self-isolation. Could you talk a little bit about what you've been thinking about and writing about during this time?
You know, I've been trying to look through the gloom and find some positive things that's happening now. And of course, there are many big corporations, wealthy people are donating to food banks, the national food banks and the local food banks. And that's a blessing because so many people are in need right now. Other wealthy people are making donations just for to fight the virus overall, to the effort to help people around the world. A lot of celebrities are making donations and doing positive things, and a lot of corporations. So I've been trying to find glimmers of hope, glimmers of light amongst the gloom during this time that we're in. And people are being so wonderful and helping others and reaching out and trying to keep the spirits up, you know, and I think that's very positive. And amongst the gloom at the forefront, we have our amazing men and women who are in the healthcare industry, who are on the front lines, helping people while endangering their own lives and the health of their own families. But they are dedicated and go to work every day to help us during this time. And then other first responders who are on the front line. Those are the heroes of today. And then we have to think about the people who are continuing to work in the grocery stores. That is so important to keep us going during this time. And they're coming to work every day and trying to make the shopping experience as safe for us as possible. And then the bus drivers and the train engineers and the people in the trucking industry, and I could go on and on, but people on the front lines trying to help, including the U.S. Corps of Engineers and the branches of the military. So
those are great reminders for our viewers. And we were so happy to feature one of your recent columns from a few weeks ago about finding these rays of sunshine in our Tennessee Voices newsletter. One of the things too that you have always been very powerful at is identifying issues of injustice and inequity. And there's been a lot of talk recently about COVID-19 disproportionately affecting communities of color, and particularly the African-American community. What is that discussion like in Memphis right now? And how are you having this discussion with others?
It's very concerning. I felt it was coming. I've been, watching and reading and trying to stay on top of this issue from the very beginning. And I was sort of self-isolated before it was mandated. And I noticed that, like in Chicago, it seems like the first person who died of COVID-19 was a Black woman. And some of her family were infected. And I was just touched when I read that. And then here in Memphis, Reverend Timothy Russell with Second Presbyterian Church. And I had interviewed him, I think early last year for another project I'm working on. And I was just touched by that. And I'm saying, why are so many African Americans being impacted? But it didn't take much thought to realize, what was happening, because we have so many of the underlying health issues that makes an individual susceptible to COVID-19. And that has come to play out as a dose of reality here in Memphis and Shelby County, as well as Chicago and across the country now. People are talking about that, and it's very concerning. At the same time, whereas there are those underlying issues, there also are cases where I feel and others feel that Black people just aren't being given the same kind of care. And I know it's difficult for our medical professionals, and they have to make decisions and choices, and for so long, and I still feel even now, they are limited in the number of tests they have. And then maybe our issues aren't taken as seriously, or maybe it impacts us differently. But I'm thinking about a case in Chicago in particular, that a girlfriend of mine, long time, a retired journalist there, and I were talking last week, and she was telling me how her goddaughter, who has asthma, she and her husband, both, and her husband is a transportation driver, I think a bus driver in Chicago. They both had gone to the hospital, and especially for the wife, who was suffering from asthma, and she was having trouble breathing. And to me, all the issues that should have warranted her to have been hospitalized immediately, she was sent back home. Her doctor sent her back the next day or the day after that and told her to go back. And I'm hoping that she was admitted at that time, because she was sent home with no test. And was not admitted. And it sounded as though she certainly had COVID-19, and she should have been treated and admitted to the hospital. So I'm hoping there's a positive outcome there. But that has played on my mind as this discussion has gone on about African Americans. So are there too many other cases like that, where people were sent home and they should have gotten some of that crucial and critical care at the first time they reached out? And then there are other people who have tried to get tested, trying to figure out what's going on with them, and then they have been told that they don't have the symptoms that warrant them being tested. So I don't know if there's an issue with us not having enough tests, or people just not taking African Americans seriously enough.
Now, you spent a lot of time in Chicago.
Yes.
In terms of your experiences, going from the north all the way, returning to the south, was that a comfortable readjustment, or was it a culture clash at all? Like, can you describe how that was like, that transition again?
No, that transition back home, and it was 3 years ago, it was very smooth for me. I loved Chicago. I lived downtown on the lakefront, and my daily thing would be to walk out on the lake. I mean, it's incredibly beautiful, and I lived in the midst of some of the best and most beautiful museums in the world. And I knew I would miss that, and I knew I would miss some of my friends. I was deeply embedded into the media community in Chicago, having worked with Ebony for almost 30 years, and being very much involved in the National Association of Black Journalists on a local level and the national level. When I decided to move home, for some reason, none of that pulled at me at that time. And I feel now that I made just such an excellent decision. I certainly would want to be here in Memphis with my family during this time. You know, I would not have wanted to be in Chicago, even though I would have been surrounded by friends, and I have even relatives there. But I'm glad that I'm here, and I have not looked back. Now, I have gone back to Chicago to visit a few times, and had planned to go this spring. But because of the virus outbreak, I'm having to put that trip off. But I love Chicago, and I love my people there, but I love Memphis just as well, if not better, because I'm surrounded by people I have known almost all my life, at least going back to Memphis State. my dear friend who retired from the Convention and Tourism Bureau is here. We go to the same church. We sat beside each other at graduation from Memphis State University. So she and her husband, I have known them forever. And there are some other friends like that too, as well as someone who's very politically involved now, Myron Lowry, who is, I think, the Memphis court clerk or the Shelby County court clerk. I may be wrong. I've known him since he was a journalist on Channel 5 here in Memphis, and he and I are still close. And then there's Otis Sanford, who was at the Commercial Appeal for all those years, and Jerome Wright as well, and I can name others. But, you know, so I feel right at home here in Memphis. And this is, I'm very happy that I'm here now.
Well, good. You mentioned you've been self-isolating for a while. What have you been doing aside from writing your column? Is there anything that you've been doing for your own self-care, be it programs or books or other things? Tell us what your secret is to getting through this time of self-care.
I am a woman of faith, so I'm very close to my pastor and church members. I talk to my pastor on a regular basis. We have a service that we do via a conference call kind of situation. And I do things to help my church and to get word out to other people. I also relieve stress. I get on the treadmill every day. Before the virus outbreak and we were isolated at home, I got on the treadmill 3, maybe 4 times a week. But now I find I'm on there every day, and I look forward to it. And then I dance around the house and exercise and just stay active. And I think that's a good thing. I try not to overeat, but even I feel that I'm gaining weight, but still I'm trying to combat that. So I'm trying to stay away from, you know, comfort foods. For Lent, I gave up sweets. So I guess I could eat some now, but I don't need to.
Well, you mentioned you're a woman of faith, and this has been a really tough time for a lot of people of faith, especially Easter just passed. We're recording this on April 14th.
Yes.
Easter was last Sunday, and a lot of people simply couldn't go to church. How did you celebrate, and how do you recommend that those people who do have a close faith relationship try to celebrate and try to practice their faith?
Well, as I said, my church has been meeting every Sunday for about an hour via a conference call line. It was our prayer line, but we made that our service line, and the members call in. So that has been very comforting. And I have also been reaching out to people, some older people in my church, to relatives, to friends across the country, just to check on them and to see if they are doing fine. And then people check on me to see if I'm doing fine. I find that to be very comforting too. You know, keep your loved ones close. But during this technological age, although I'm not at the top of the tech savvy list of people, I stay in touch with people, with friends and family members. And being a writer, I send notes. I've put 2 pieces in the mail today. So occasionally I drop notes when I can find addresses. You know, you can easily get behind on keeping up with people's mail addresses. So I just try to stay in touch with people, stay healthy and exercise, and keep my faith and stay in touch with my pastor.
And that came through.
That's working for me.
Yeah, that came through in one of your tweets from today, where you said, "Let's be careful and prayerful," when it came to the Virginia pastor who held church service and died of coronavirus from the Chicago Crusader.
Yes.
Those are, we're seeing a lot of this, that the people who are congregating, there have been incidents where people have become sick and in some cases have died, which is just tragic.
It is tragic. And that's, I wrote about some of that in my column in the Commercial Appeal this past Sunday. And it was on, you know, the age of coronavirus, a life in the era of COVID-19, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And amongst the bad, I mentioned some of the pastors in Florida and Louisiana who are still holding big services, and the two I mentioned had been arrested even. Is to shut down, but they vowed they were going to hold services on Easter Sunday, and that's very disturbing to me. My pastor knew immediately that was not the way to go, and immediately stopped holding choir practice, meetings, and any kind of service at our church, and we found an alternative. I just think that some people don't understand the severity of this crisis, this health crisis that we're in, and they're putting members of their congregation at risk, and they're putting their own lives at risk. And that's disturbing. I was very saddened to read about that pastor today that I tweeted out. I didn't know you were following me on Twitter.
I am. I was preparing for this interview, or the conversation, yeah. I should say, is not a formal interview. But we are in the last couple of minutes of our conversation, Lynn, and okay. I ask every guest at the end if you would offer some words of advice or reflection to help us get through this challenging time right now.
Mm-hmm. I think the best thing I can say is have faith that if we all do the right thing, and the right thing now is to stay in, be safe, wash your hands, and be careful of being around other people, because people look like they're healthy, but you just don't know if they are carrying the virus or not. They don't know, and so you would know. So we have to just use common sense and make good decisions right now. I think we can get through this together if we all do the right thing, support each other, and count on our leaders to make the right decisions. But regardless of what our leaders may do, we just need to use common sense.
Those are wonderful words to end with. Lynn Norment, legendary journalist, inductee into the Hall of Fame for the National Association of Black Journalists, and columnist for the Commercial Appeal in Memphis. I want to thank you so much. And to our viewers, you can catch this episode and other episodes on commercialappeal.com, Tennessean.com, nuxnews.com. And we definitely want your feedback. You can email me at dplazas@tennessean.com. Thank you very much, Lynn. I have so appreciated your time.
My pleasure. Take care and be safe, David.
You too.